People want to say that Jimmy Dore don't have the credentials. Jimmy Dore don't have the credentials.
What are your credentials?
To what? Pressure his politicians?
I'll tell you real quick what got me on board for Medicare for All was I got sick, and I got sick in not in a normal way. I got sick in a way that was hard to diagnose. So my illness stretched out for over 3 to 4 years. And what happened was I would go to the doctor, and they would say you have this, and then they would prescribe something, and I would get sicker. And then 6 months would go by, and they would say, oh, you don't have that, you have something else. And then they would give me another treatment, and 6 months would go by, and I'd get sicker. And this kept going on and going on, and then they said, you know, there's this guy, Dr. Sharp, you should go see him, Dr. Charles Sharp, he's the best guy, and he could fix you. Well, he didn't take my insurance, and by that time, I was already broke, right? We had health insurance, and they just don't pay for stuff. They don't pay for MRIs and CT scans, and I had to have special different kind of tests that nobody else could get, and I had to get a special plate.
So Jimmy Dore is going to tell you his own personal story. This is his story in America, and this is what gives him the credentials that he needs in order to speak about it. He's absolutely right. This does give him credentials. I went to college. I graduated, so I know about credentials, okay? So Cindy Sheehan started an entire movement because her son got shot and killed. But that makes sense because why would she be against the war? Well, her son got shot and killed. So she had, an obviously good reason to be against the war. That was her credentials, and she was actually able to do a lot with that protest movement. So he's absolutely correct. This gives him the credentials that he needs.
I had to pay for it all out of my pocket, and I know what it's like, right? And I know what it's like to walk into a doctor's office that you owe money to and not have any room left on your credit card and have them deny you service while you're dying. And you don't know what's happening. You don't even know what your illness is yet. All you know is that you're about to die. And all you know is that you just bankrupted yourself. And I bankrupted my wife. And we didn't know where to turn or what to do.
So Jimmy Dore just said he about bankrupted himself and bankrupted his wife, and then this disease is his spine is just going to collapse. He said he went from 5'10" to 5'7". So I don't know what his illness was for 4 years. They tried to figure it out, and then they did figure it out finally. So this is his story. This is his story. About bankrupted him, about bankrupted his wife, and then he's going to get suicidal. These are his credentials.
And then one day I stepped off a step the wrong way, and my spine collapsed. I went from 5'10" to 5'7", like that. I had 6 vertebrae. So then I was like, hey, I'm just about ready to die. Maybe we should scrape together any kind of money we can and go see Dr. Sharp. So we did. And Dr. Sharp diagnosed me correctly within the first visit. And I had dead bone in my thigh at that time. I had dead bone in my spine. I had fractures all over my body, from my feet to my fingers to my neck to my ribs. I had broken bones all over my body, and I had dead bone in my hip and in my thigh, and I was supposed to get the Bo Jackson surgery. And Dr. Sharp sent me to the guy who invented that Bo Jackson surgery. Anyway, the long story short was, he told me they have to take bone out of my shin, put it in my thigh, and I wouldn't be able to step on my leg for 6 months. And I was already hunched over and limping. I could barely move. But I could still sit down and do stand-up comedy, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have any money. So I would get pushed out into a comedy club, and I would be helped up onto the stage, and I would sit down and recite my act. And so doing that, I was offered an hour special on Comedy Central while I was dying.
So Jink and Jimmy Dore, that was the heyday of the Young Turks when they were on the same page. Jink had a ton of admiration for Jimmy Dore, said he was the funniest man in America, and then Jimmy Dore said Jink essentially taught Jimmy Dore how to do this YouTube stuff, and so, they radicalized each other. They in a good way, right? So they were good for each other when they were best friends, and if they were, just think if the TYT apparatus was actually pushing for this thing. Fuck, we actually might get the damn thing, but nope, TYT is the new MSNBC. MSNBC is Fox News, and Fox News is, well, I guess they probably should just cancel. That's, so, Jimmy Dore.
And I had to tell that doctor, I can't get this operation right now. in my thigh because A, I don't have the money for it, and B, if I do it, I won't be able to do my Comedy Central special. And if I can't do that, I'm going to kill myself anyway. And he said, well, just so you know, Jimmy, at any moment your thigh bone could snap. Any moment you step on stage, your thigh bone could snap, just so you know. And I said, well, that's a chance I got to take. And so we went bankrupt, and I didn't get that surgery. But Dr. Sharp, after 4 years of being misdiagnosed, finally helped me get back onto the road to recovery. And I'm still recovering today. And I don't think anybody has to go through that. I don't think anybody, because they got sick, should have to face wanting to kill themselves, bankruptcy, financial destruction, and not knowing where to turn, and not being able to get the help you want because they don't take your insurance. It's a crazy situation we're into, and I hope that that would give me the gravitas to be able to advocate for Medicare for all.
So a lot of the criticism is coming from Jink and Jink sycophants and Jink's employees, so they got to, essentially kiss the ass of the system. They're getting money from the system, and so they can't, bite the hand that feeds, so clearly we can't get Medicare for all anymore, which is unfortunate, because they used to be, such good friends. In fact, Jink Ugar just now, today is the last day of the year, December 31st, 2020, Thursday. He just tweeted, he just shitted on Jimmy Dore, saying that it was mistimed. Look, this movement is mistimed, and, questioning his sanity, saying he needs to be psychologically evaluated. That's what fucking psychos do. That's an abuser. That's a gaslighting technique. And so, Jimmy Dore, my point is, Jink Ugar was to say that this movement was mistimed, slightly mistimed. Well, Jink Ugar supported it all in, basically name only that McCarthy lie, so he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about, but December 14th, he was basically saying it was a good idea, it was positive, it's action, and he was 95%, behind it. He said no, ultimately, but if he, just changed that McCarthy lie, there's no other fucking argument that he's got on the table, a full-throated endorsement, except for the McCarthy lie. Why the fuck isn't Jink on board with Medicare for all? Who the fuck paid him? Either who the fuck paid him, or has he always been paid? Has he always been here to fuck everybody over, just to hoot and holler and carry on like a fucking clown, like a fucking fool, and then y'all go watch the circus and you've been, looking, at the goddamn spectacle instead of actually seeing, the power politics, the power apparatus in D.C. for what it actually is? He says it's mistimed, and yet he's going to shit on Jimmy Dore 3 days prior to forced to vote. He's going to say it's mistimed, and yet he had an entire month to get behind the fucking thing and actually, make it better timed or whatever the hell he wanted. If it's slightly mistimed, that means he had 3 weeks to do something, whatever. Jesus Christ. Talk about slightly mistimed, shitting on Jimmy Dore 3 days prior to the damn Pelosi vote. It's almost like Jink Ugar is fighting to the death to make sure that Nancy Pelosi is coronated queen. It's one thing to say, hey, maybe it don't work and I'm not down for, but it's another thing to say, you know what, we got to, protect Queen Nancy.
On behalf of me and my family and other people's families who go broke or are worrying about getting sick. Because everyone knows we're one unique illness away from being bankrupt and out on the street. Everybody knows that. And if they don't vote for this right now, they're telling you they don't care. They'd rather protect themselves and their career and their position inside a party than help the people who elected them, who are dying in the middle of a deadly pandemic and the worst economic crisis in our history.
So Steph Zamorano is going to get on there, and she's going to talk about how in America we say, how are you, but we don't actually mean it. It's just that way we say, hello. It's a greeting in America. Hey, how are you doing? Fine. How are you? Fine. Sometimes you don't even have to answer. How are you? How are you? All right. Well, see you later. Big gulps, huh? Well, see you later. So, how are you? You're just supposed to say fine. You're not supposed to actually go into your life story. Hey, how are you doing? Well, to tell you the truth, I'm very, very happy. God, I am. Thank you. You want to know the state of my being right now? I am. So Steph Zamorano actually said that when they're going through the shit, people say, how are you? How are you? And it's like, oh, my husband's dying. How are you? my husband's dying and he's suicidal and we don't know what the hell, we don't know who to turn to. You can't say all this stuff. And so now she says, when people say, how are you, she says that she's lucky. She's lucky and something else. But she basically answers the question. And angry. She's mad as hell. She's lucky and she's mad as hell. So Steph Zimmerano says, how are you? So be honest, right? Shit's tough right now. How are you doing? Shit's a little tough. Hang in there. I think that'd be a nice little exchange, right? Instead of, how are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. How you doing? Man, shit's a little tough right now, but we're surviving. We keeping our head afloat. Well, keep on keeping on. You know how it is. So,
that's what's happening, and I know I was told that I'm not allowed to advocate for this because I'm not official. Well, I'm telling you that this story gives me the ground to stand on. And people who have the same story like me, who don't have time to go out and be a professional organizer, I'm speaking for them. I'm speaking for the people who go bankrupt. I'm speaking for the people who die every year. The 40-some thousand people a year who die because they don't have health care. I'm speaking for them. They don't have time to go out and professionally organize. We're doing it for them. Because I don't think anybody should have to go through what I went through or what my wife went through ever in the richest country in the world. People who have worked all their lives every day shouldn't have to go through that. And when you have the power to do something about it, you should use your power. And if you don't use your power, shame on you. Steph, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
So Steph's going to talk about how are you. Now, I just want to make a comment because this is all about his credentials, right? You want to sit there and say he's not credentialed, he's not an organizer, he's not running a super PAC or a nonprofit, he's not a lobbyist in D.C., so somehow he's not allowed to criticize the United States of America. Jimmy Dore gets to criticize the United States of America because he's a red, white, and blue American. He sees that this shit's, he sees the fucking shit show, and he's like, you know what? Let's clean this shit show up. That's exactly a person, you clean your house because you love your house, right? Love it or leave it, fuck you. No, let's improve it. Let's evolve. Let's make it better. So America hurt Jimmy Dore, and he wants to make sure that nobody in America ever gets hurt by America ever again when it comes to health care. Medicare for all is for everybody. Everybody, old, young, red, white, blue, black, brown. And on this, I want to make his point quickly since the time's going out. Jimmy Dore, like I said, I went to college. Okay? So I understand how the degrees work, right? So I'm going to give him a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science. Jimmy Dore is teaching all of us exactly how to mobilize the public. How to mobilize the public. Jimmy Dore, that's a class. So he's teaching us, 3 classes actually. 3 classes. How to weaponize the media. You got to yell at people and make it good TV. So you got to weaponize the media. How to mobilize the public and how to start a revolution in an authoritarian regime. So there's 3 classes that Jimmy Dore is teaching all of America right now. So you should actually open up your notebooks and start taking notes and listen to what Jimmy Dore has to say. What does this jag-off pothead comedian? What the hell? Why is everybody got their panties in a bunch over this jag-off pothead comedian? That's the question you should fucking ask yourself.
Well, Jimmy was saying that, bottom line is, people would ask me during this time period, how are you? And I would say, I'm fine, because how do you turn to somebody and say, my husband's dying. He's suicidal. We've tapped out everything. Like when people say, how are you? They don't really want to know how you're doing, because I think we probably all know we're not doing well right now. Weren't we all $400 away from a disaster? And look what's facing us. And so like now, when people say, I didn't lose everything. I have Jimmy still. And when they say, how are you? I say, I'm lucky. My husband's alive. And I'm angry. And it's time for Force the Vote. And this, Medicare for All, is about love. It's about loving each other and caring for our neighbors and the most vulnerable among us. Hashtag Force the Vote. And if I don't have the credentials, high school English teacher for 20 years, proud union member, I don't know where I was supposed to get my credential to be a grassroots activist, but I think I earned it.